All right, everybody. So we are looking at the real world problems, and you've seen the problem on the previous slide. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at how to solve this using the 5 steps to solve our real world problem. Now, let me begin with whether or not you read it word for word is kind of up to you, because you're going to see that what we're going to do is we're going to pull out the pertinent information. And part of the reason I want to say that is sometimes they use words that you're like, what is that? I don't want the words to stumble you. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to look at what it is we actually need to know. So step 1 tells us to identify the equations. Now we know what an equation looks like, so I'm just going to kind of skim through here, and I'm just looking for an equation, and then I go, oh wait, here is an equation right here. And then I keep skimming because it's a system, so I know I need 2, and sure enough, there's another equation. So what I'm going to do is I am going to highlight that equation. All right, I'm highlighting both of those equations so that I can identify them. All right, there's my equations. Now the next thing says to identify what each variable represents. Now hint, this is always going to be right with the equation. So here I have y and h. Instead of y and x, I have h, and here's y. Notice h represents the number of hours rented. So they just picked a different letter because it made a little bit more sense. And then y represents the cost in dollars. Now, because it's a system, you should have the same exact variables with the same meaning in the second equation. And sure enough, h represents the number of hours rented and y represents the cost in dollars. So I'm going to highlight both of those so that I can see them. All right, so I have my variables are now highlighted. Now, all I'm doing here is I'm using those skills that you've got in your English class. Same thing goes when you're doing real world problems in math. Okay, so step 3 says identify what you are asked to find. Now, what you're finding is 99% of the time in the last sentence or equation, or excuse me, sentence or paragraph. So what we're going to do is we're going to look, and it says for how many hours of rental is the amount charged by the 2 companies the same? And then what is the cost in dollars of renting the bike for this many hours? So there's what I'm looking for. And hint, that's also why I need to know what each of the variables represents, because my hours is my h. So when I solve for h, that'll be answering this question. And my y is my cost, so that will be answering my second question. That's what I need to know and what I need to be prepared to answer. Okay, so there's what I'm looking for. Now, once I have everything highlighted and I can see it, now I'm ready to solve my system of equations. Now, when I go to solve my system of equations, what I'm going to need to do is write out my 2 equations. Previously, this was already done for you, okay? But now we're going to do it. So my first equation says y equals 5h plus 25. And my second equation says y equals 6h plus 18. So these are my 2 equations. And I note that what I've got here is I've got y equals to start both of them. So just like we did in our practice problem at the beginning today, I'm going to take the 2 expressions, since both expressions equal y, and I'm going to set them equal to each other. And this is how I'm going to solve my system. So I take 5h plus 25 equals 6h plus 18. There's my system of equations. And I want to solve. So I start with the fact that I have an h on the left and an h on the right of that equal sign. So I want to get them on the same side. And again, compare your coefficients, 5 and 6. 5 is smaller, so that's going to be the one I want to move. And since it's positive, I'm going to move it by subtracting 5h from both of the h's, both sides. All right, over here on the left, it's going to cancel, which is going to leave me with the 25. Then I have 6h minus 5h. Well, 6 minus 5 is just 1. So I could put the 1, or I can just put h, because it's that ninja one we don't ever really need. So I now have 25 equals h plus 18. The 18 just came down. Now I want h all by itself, so I need to make this 18 go away. So inverse operation tells me that I need to use subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 18 on both sides. Again, that's going to cancel my 18s there on the right this time. So my h is equal to, I have 25 minus 18, which is 7. So my h, which represents my number of hours, is 7. Now, to find my cost, this is again just what we were doing before. I'm just going to take this 7 and I'm going to input it back up in the original equation to figure out what that is. So I'm going to write the 7 first just so I don't have to change colors again. And so I have y equals 5 times the 7 plus 25. That's going to give me my total cost. So 5 times 7 is 35, and then I have plus 25. And so y equals 35 plus 25 is going to give me 60. So my y, my cost is 60. So my hours equals 7, and my cost equals $60. And now you have solved a system of equations that is a real world situation. If he were to rent the bike for 7 hours from either company, it would be $60.